Welcome back, folks, to another video. It's been a minute since I've done more of a in-depth video, but here we are. We're doing it. It's going to be for Matthew Stafford. If you guys don't know, if you've been living under a rock, he is the starting quarterback now for the Los Angeles Rams after a trade that sent Jared Goff and multiple picks to the Detroit Lions. Took place before the Super Bowl. It won't be active until March. When the new league year starts. So let's go through his highlights, his tape. I went through all 17 weeks, which of course was pretty easy because Stafford missed pretty much all of week 16. So I went through and dug up all sorts of you could call them highlights, but we're gonna talk about each individual one and go through it. So. First off here, you see the man motion. Stafford, he does a nice job here. This is thrown right on a line. And when you wonder what Matthew Stafford is bringing to the table, simply put, this guy is going to be able to throw two receivers on the run. And I know it sounds very simple, but it's not. Because when you really think about it, as long as Jared Goff has been the Rams quarterback, this team has not been able to hit guys in stride. It doesn't happen anymore, and so it's going to be a breath of fresh air. Again, you'll see the way Matthew Stafford is able to, basically hit man without even breaking their stride. They can continue running as soon as they get the football, get multiple yards. It's a great thing. You move on. What you'll see here, Matthew Stafford throwing a laser. There's no ducks. There's none of that. Matthew Stafford has all sorts of mustard he can put on the football. He has all sorts of arm angles, which you'll see throughout this. But we're starting off here in Detroit versus Chicago, week 1 of the season. And you're seeing, a confident Matthew Stafford delivering the football to Marvin Hall there. Now, Stafford likes working in the shotgun. Here he is. Great job orchestrating himself through the pocket. His movement there to find the open receiver over the middle and Danny Amendola. It's definitely, impressive what he's able to do on film. You look at it, it's almost like he's a robot because he really plays like a robot. As you see, Amendola is the man. We already know, as fans that have seen him play, going back to St. Louis, he can obviously take a hit. Now this is a nice play. Love the shoulder check there from Marvin Jones, who maybe they potentially play again in Los Angeles. You're going to see Matthew Stafford. It's a quick drop, but he sees nothing there. He's going to take off and run for a first, and that's what you can see. Matthew Stafford does things like that a lot, where he can just take off and run, and there's a great throw there, right close to the goal line. Not quite a touchdown, but again, you see it's pinpoint accuracy with Stafford first and foremost. But the thing that I love the most is what you'll see in this game, what you'll see in a lot of these games. Look at Stafford. He sets his feet there, and he delivers a perfect strike to only where Marvin Jones can get it. That's called ball placement, folks, and he is so good at it. And there he is again with the ball placement. Touchdown to TJ Hawkinson. And what you're going to see here, he's going to motion his man, and Hawkinson's going to go out. And look, Stafford sees pressure, but he, gives a little bit of a pump fake, throws, inside, out, the left shoulder there, only where Hawkinson can get it. And then here to Quintez Cephas, his wide receiver, makes a nice throw there, only where Quintez Cephas can receive it. Now, the Bears are a great defense. I mean, that's not anything, it's not like people don't know that. So that's a great throw to Cephas there. And he played very well this year, and we're going to talk about it more in depth. Another thing, a lot of wide receiver screens, a lot of screens thrown by Goff. Well, Matthew Stafford actually throws them on target. As you can see, that flat route, throws it right on target. He wants to help his receivers be able to turn upfield, and that's something I love. And there you see Matthew Stafford's his ability to run out of the pocket and makes something happen. He's very good at that. It's uncanny what he can do off script, and you'll see it here. He's going to sense the pressure. He's going to roll out and find there, and his man there in Quintez Cephas. Now this one, perfect throw, but it's dropped. Figured I'd show that to you because, well, he didn't cause that, and he can throw the screen pass there. Stafford is very quick to respond, and you'll see that. I mean, that's a great throw. Here's the thing: the rookie Cephas needs to be on the same page. Now, clearly, this is a timing throw, and it looks bad on paper, like, oh, Stafford missed his throw. But if you look, Cephas just didn't run the right route. Now you'll see here Stafford's going to dump it off, and this is going to be a nice screen here, set up pretty nicely by the rookie DeAndre Swift. Again, Stafford trying to put his guys in best positions to succeed. This is an interception here. Now, I am going to show you interceptions in this because I want to make things very clear to you. Stafford's going to throw these. It's going to happen. Look, that's cocky arm right there. He's trying to get it into a tight space, and that's just way too tight for him to throw that ball. It's going to happen. Now here, you're going to see Bullet. This time almost gets picked, but it's a great throw right on the money to Marvin Jones, as you can see there. And the thing is, Stafford, he feels it. And when he feels it, he can take off, he can run. There's a nice job, moving around in the pocket, scrambling if you have nothing. Now Stafford, look at the way he throws inside shoulder, turns the guy upfield. There's a nice screen pass there. Again, it sounds simple. It's weird. But you have to applaud Stafford's ability to throw the screen. And then right there, Danny Amendola hits him right in stride. You got to love it. Stafford here, he's going to look, he's going to fire. And it's a beautiful throw to win the game, except Swift drops it. And you'll see it again. Stafford, just a beautiful throw. Here it is in slow-mo. And he drops it. Back shoulder. No can do. So on to week 2 against Green Bay, and there's a quick dart there from Stafford, and what you're going to see is Stafford's ability to go through his progressions, something he does very often. Doesn't hook onto one receiver. There's T.J. Hawkinson. He had a year with Stafford. And now this is caught. This could have been picked. I think it's a good throw. It's not a horrible decision. I think he put it right where it needed to be. And, it was a great play by one of the best corners in all of football in Jair Alexander. But also, you got to give credit where credit's due. And Marvin Jones was a monster this season for Matthew Stafford. The stats don't show it, but he really helped. And there's another great throw. I mean, that's just perfect to me. You're throwing that only where your receiver can get it. And you're going to hear me say that a lot throughout this video. Matthew Stafford, his ability. He's going to turn upfield and, again, beautiful. Nothing there. Run, get your first down. Here's a nice throw. That's going to be Mohamed Sanu. And now, this has to be caught, but it wouldn't have really gone anywhere. Marvin Hall, I just showed it anyway. This is awesome, though. Boom. Go low. Why throw that high? There's no need to. It's a touchdown. So Stafford changes his arm angle, throws low, and knows Marvin's going to come down with it. There you go. Marvin Jones in the end zone. You get your touchdown against tough Green Bay. Now Stafford wants to go deep, and he's testing him. Marvin Jones, he's testing Jair Alexander early on. He is not afraid of this matchup. And this is a great throw. If you watch, it is right on the money. May have gotten tipped a little bit, but that's in Marvin's hands, and he just drops it. Very rare drop for Marvin Jones. Now, again, Stafford's going to look deep. He's going to fire, and I love the way he finds his receiver and turns him upfield. You'll see this a lot. Stafford does that. Now, this is a sack here because, well, his offensive line isn't very good. I want to make that very clear. This is somebody that, faced a lot of pressure, and, he definitely faced a lot of pressure this season. It was not all perfect. It was not all sunshine and rainbows with Stafford. If you want to know the stats, I mean, we can go literally through each game. In this one, I can tell you, he had 10 pressures against him. So, Stafford was pressured 10 times, 6 hurries, 1 hit, 3 sacks. There were 3 penalties on the offensive line. That's just a horrible throw. Stafford... Again, he's going to throw these. It's going to happen. He's a gunslinger. And unfortunately, the mentality here, even though you want to live to play another down, he's also kind of thinking, if I get sacked there, it's going to be a safety. Well, he gives up the touchdown anyway. So now Stafford's going to deliver a strike here, and it's dropped by Kerryon Johnson. That's a nice throw by to Quintez Cephas. Again, he's always trying to, like, see there. He throws inside shoulder so the guy can turn upfield. That is something that's very important. Again, inside, and now Quintez ends up picking up the first. See, you're going to see this. He's trying to help his teammates succeed. Nice hurdle there by DeAndre Swift. And Stafford, again, you want to help your teammates succeed. The ball placement is strategic. Stafford is doing everything he can. That is just beautiful pocket awareness, moving up in the pocket, the mobility factor there. He doesn't have to be a track star, like I've said. He doesn't have to be Lamar Jackson. Just do your thing, my man. And there he is, throwing a beautiful dart to Marvin, I almost said Marvin Jones, it's Marvin Hall, in the back of the end zone. Now, Stafford, in his own territory, he's going to deliver a strike here, and you're probably like, how did he even complete that? That is to Quintez Cephas. We're not taking any of these checkdowns. No, Stafford's going for it all. Look at this throw in slow-mo. Beautiful play. It looked like he was going to get picked, but a perfect throw can't be defended. And as you can see, Matthew Stafford throws a perfect throw there. Now, here he is again in the shotgun, and, Stafford loves being in there. Look at, he tries to make things happen. Even when he gets hit hard, he tries to make things happen. If you're wondering why that was the last Green Bay game play, that was not the end of the game. He got hurt on that play. As you can see, the offensive line failed to protect him, and he got sandwiched. I showed this because here's the thing. People would say, oh, why did Stafford throw this pick? Watch this hold here. I slowed it down for you. Amendola is going to catch that if he doesn't get held. And there's Stafford stepping up the pocket, delivering a strike over to his guy, TJ Hawkinson. You're going to hear me talk about him a lot. I mean, this is just great stuff by Stafford. And notice his eyes are always downfield. He's never dropping his eyes. Once you drop your eyes, you're done. And he does not do that. In this game, he had 10 pressures against him. And you're going to see Stafford here comfortable. And this is just a beautiful throw. And this is over to Kenny Golladay. He didn't have Golladay long because he came in, he immediately made an impact. But, the times he had him in, it was fun to watch. See, simple dump off, nothing too crazy. Didn't throw way behind his man, gives him an opportunity. Here's Stafford trying to make something happen. I mean, that's just ridiculous. He's getting hit before he can even. And there's Stafford, a nice throw, touchdown. And that is Jesse James. Stafford again here. He's going to find his man. And again, look at the way he throws that ball. It's very simple. But he's able to turn off field and get yards with it. I believe that was Jamal Agnew. Another nice throw. Stafford, again, turns up field. He puts it on the right arm, the right shoulder, the right hand, and a guy can turn up field and make a play. He's not just trying to get his throw off and connected. It's a lot of work to think like that. And there's Kenny Golladay. My word. This throw is phenomenal. Go up and get it. And Golladay stretches, of course, because he knows what he's doing. It's just this is Stafford, folks. This is what you're getting with Matt Stafford. Look at how far that ball went. I put this in here because, simply put, this ball is a flat-out rocket, and it shows you what his velocity can do. Look at how hard this ball goes like 20 yards off that guy's hand. There's DeAndre Swift not paying attention to the screen. Figured I'd throw that in there. That throw is money. Turns his shoulder so he actually gets his receiver out of harm's way. And look at that. Right on the money. He's able to turn up field. You'll see these a lot. And you'll also see that. I kept those in. There, he's a little pissed. Stafford, again, right on the money. I know I'm pointing out these folks, and it's probably annoying you, but Jared Goff, and I didn't want to bring up his name at all in this video because it's about Stafford, not Goff. Jared Goff isn't hitting these guys in stride. Okay? Jared Goff was throwing, that is what he's doing consistently with guys that are on the run. This is Stafford on the boot. And look at how simple that is. I mean, that's the thing. Is that's one thing that Goff was seriously missing. And there, we can't protect Stafford, clearly. So, here's the thing. This video got you here because you probably saw Matthew Stafford MVP, right? Well, here's the thing. And that ball is absolute money to Marvin Hall. Goff is not throwing that. I can tell you that right now. Goff is not throwing this. You'll see this in slow-mo. This is just an amazing throw by Stafford from about the 35 to it lands at the 5-6 yard line. And it gets called back due to some hold or a penalty of some sort, but it's a great throw nonetheless. It's another nice throw, gets the first down because of where he places the ball. But no, Stafford can win MVP with the Rams, okay? Stafford next year is going to absolutely explode. He's doing all this. If you look, he's constantly under duress. He's constantly being pressured. He had 161 pressures this season alone. His offensive line put on him. 101 hurries, 27 hits, 33 sacks. Jared Goff had 145 pressures, 84 hurries, 41 hits, 21 sacks. Now, the thing with this is very simple. Matthew Stafford, as I've said, is a top 7 quarterback. He doesn't have the defense, which was the worst defense in the league according to PFF. The Rams, of course, were the best. And because of this, he's put in situations where maybe he's throwing interceptions that he's trying to just make anything happen. Whereas if he's in a situation like, say, now where he's in with LA, now he's not pressing. There's no need to press. This is a team that's won 36 or 37 times when leading at halftime and hasn't lost. And there's a reason for that. It's the Sean McVay formula. It's the time of possession domination. It's the fact they want to play defense. They want to be able to run the ball. They want to have a balanced attack. And Sean McVay was able to do that with Jared Goff, who was a lesser talented quarterback than Matthew Stafford. And now that he has Stafford, yeah, he might get a little crazy with the fact that he is a true gunslinger. Maybe have a little fun. But make no mistake, he's still going to play his type of game. He's still going to call his style of game. And at the end of the day, I think this is a perfect fit for Matthew Stafford, a guy that really hasn't had much of a defense. As you can see, that was not a great decision. And again, he makes those. But here's the thing, folks. When you are constantly being in position, you're put in position where you have to do everything yourself, aren't you going to press a little? Aren't you thinking, if I don't throw a touchdown this drive, or if I don't make this completion, we're looking at 4th down. I know my coaches want to punt. You see a beautiful pass there. I know my coach is going to want to punt. So, simply put, I think a lot of the turnovers that Stafford accumulated came down to the fact that either he was under pressure way too often, or, look, nothing here is showing you what the score is at this time, but I can tell you in a lot of these games, he pushed his team back. He gave them an opportunity. This was not a good football team, but this was a team that was competitive because of Stafford. The defense was horrendous. So I look at Stafford and his ability to, obviously he has mobility. He has that clutch factor. He's the clutch gene. You either have it or you don't. He has 31 comebacks, 38 game-winning drives. And I almost like it more that he's literally been in a situation where he's had to do things. He's been uncomfortable a lot. Whereas you look like a guy like Jared Goff, and if the Rams were constantly winning, then those situations where he was uncomfortable were because he was put in situations where he hadn't really been in them. Not that often, anyway. So you look at Stafford, and you're like, this guy's only been in 3 playoff games. And I know if you're saying that, one thing I have to point out, because it said a lot, and it's not just you, my friend, whoever may be listening. 3 playoff games. Rushing yards per game in those playoff games, 57. Defensive yards allowed per game, 442.7. Since 1940, NFL teams combined have a .105 win-loss percentage when they rush between 47 to 67 yards and allow between 412 to 472 yards in a playoff game. That sure is interesting. That sounds to me like no one is having success under the same situation, the same scenarios that Matthew Stafford's been put in. It's really interesting to me. So how is he going to win the MVP, Jake? Why do you keep ranting about that? First off, look at the throws he's making in this video. He's going to have his picks. He might throw double digits, okay? Because he's a gunslinger. But watch this throw. This throw is on the money, and it's only where his receiver, Kenny Golladay, is going to catch it. He does that so well. He puts guys in position to succeed. If you think about this, the Rams already have two of the top 3 leaders in yards after the catch. And Jared Goff doesn't do a good job putting guys in position to move upfield after the catch. He throws underneath. He throws either over their head. He throws at their feet. He throws behind them. When does Jared Goff ever throw in front of the receiver strategically? Stafford does that all the time. And more importantly, Stafford's worked with every type of receiver that you can imagine. He's worked with a first ballot Hall of Famer in Calvin Johnson. He's worked with Kenny Golladay. He's worked with Marvin Jones. Sure, those are your go up and get, deep threats, right? However, he's also worked with Danny Amendola. He's worked with Quintez Cephas. He's worked with tight ends like TJ Hawkinson and Hunter Bryant and Jesse James and Levine Toilolo. And the list goes on. And he's worked with running backs. If you look at the way Matthew Stafford can deliver a screen pass, just as simple as that, because at times Jared Goff couldn't even connect on a screen pass. You have to imagine Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers could be in for monstrous seasons. But not only that, I think a guy like Bryson Hopkins could really emerge because Matthew Stafford can make all the throws. That includes a 50-yard seam buster, pretty much a play that Bryson Hopkins was used in college. Bryson Hopkins is going to be the guy after Tyler Higbee. I don't see Gerald Everett coming back, and I don't even know if Johnny Munt will be back. So what I'm saying is I think there's so many weapons, and I'm saying I don't even think that their potential has been fully tapped into. Imagine Cooper Kupp getting the ball out in front of him so he could get more yards after the catch. Imagine Robert Woods not having to reach 3 yards behind him to make a catch. Remember that interception? It was against the Patriots where Jared Goff threw it way behind Robert Woods and Woods tried to make a play and actually flipped the ball up and it got picked off and people were blaming Woods. Well, you don't have that with Stafford. You don't have ducks. You don't have random overthrows. You don't have random underthrows. You have a guy that throws pinpoint most of the time. And if he's throwing high because he knows that's your catch radius, and that's only where you're going to get it and not the other guy, not the other team. I mean, look at this frozen rope right here. Beautiful. This is what Stafford does. This is what he's been doing. Anybody calling him overrated at this point just don't realize how good he is. Those of you that want to say, well, this is a guy that only had 26 touchdowns last year. And at most, he's had 41, which no one will ever bring that up if they're trying to discredit Stafford. But he had 26 touchdowns last year. And then I also hear his stats are very comparable to Jared Goff because, Goff, his issue is that he had running backs that vultured his touchdowns at the goal line or within 10 yards. So I actually went ahead and dug those stats up for you. And Jared Goff had 14 of those. That's a lot. But Stafford had 16. So Stafford had more touchdowns passing, and he had 16 touchdowns, which went to a running back within 10 yards. 10 yards of the goal line. So could you not make the argument Stafford had 16 vultured touchdowns? Now, how is he going to win the MVP? We keep going back to this. How is he going to win the MVP? Well, first off, look at what McVay was able to do with Jared Goff. I don't think Jared Goff is anywhere near Stafford's level. He's not as confident. He doesn't have the arm he has. He doesn't have the accuracy, the mobility, the experience. Stafford has he's wanted to play in this situation. We've already seen what Stafford can do when he has a good situation. Let's just equate it to when they had Calvin Johnson. He had over 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. He had over almost 5,000 yards again the very next year, but he threw over 700 times and led the league. In this offense, anybody that's worried about Stafford putting this team in a position to fail, which you shouldn't, let's go back to 2017. 2016. Stafford in 2016 had 8 fourth-quarter game-winning drives out of 9-7 records. So 8 of the 9 wins he had to come from behind and win. And this is a common thing. The next year he had 4. The next year he had 1, but they only won 6 games. The next year he had 1. They only won 3 games before he got hurt. And then in 2020 he had 4, and they won 5 games. So what I'm getting at here, Stafford's doing more with less. A lot more with less. I mentioned it earlier today on Twitter. He has the same number of comebacks and 1 more game-winning drive than Matt Ryan in 40 less games played. He's not given enough credit. He's just not. So how can he win an MVP? Well, he's got Robert Woods. He's got Cooper Kupp. He's got Van Jefferson. He might have this man right here who's about to score a touchdown on screen in Marvin Jones. He has Tyler Higbee. He has Bryson Hopkins. He's a star running back or future star running back in Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. Why wouldn't he win the MVP? When you have all those guys around you, you have an offensive line that is pretty much going to be the same, except for maybe the center, Austin Blythe, who's in free agency. Perhaps they upgrade in the draft. You have Sean McVay, the offensive guru. Are we not realizing or remembering that Sean McVay took one of the worst offenses, an offense that Todd Gurley deemed a high school offense? He took that and turned them into the number 1 offense the next year. And then kept that same consistency in 2018 as the number 2 offense. Kansas City was ahead of them. They beat Kansas City also head-to-head. 2019, they struggled. In 2020, they struggled. But they struggled to find the end zone. Stafford doesn't struggle to find the end zone. The only time he struggles to find the end zone is when his coach tells him to hand it off to the running back. He had 16 of those. Stafford's ready. He's ready for the moment. He has had 1 top 10 defense. That 1 top 10 defense led to them going 11-5. It led to his only Pro Bowl season. And it led to the playoffs. That 1 top 10 defense in 2014. All he needs is a solid defense. All he needs is, hey, if I score 31, can you not give up 38? Or can you not, that's the thing, is that Stafford's doing everything he can, and you look at these games where, wow, he really played well against insert team here, and they end up losing because, well, they're the Lions. They don't have much of a defense. Look at what Stafford was able to do. All right, so the Buccaneers without Stafford, by the way, because they only had him for 3 snaps or 3 throws. He went 2 of 3 in that game, and he left the game. I think he got hurt, but I don't actually remember why they replaced Chase Daniel. But Stafford, and as you can see here, this is Marvin Hall. Look at this adjustment, but look at this throw. This is a 60-yard throw in the air for Stafford. Again, I don't remember the last time the Rams had a quarterback that could make that throw. And then this one, just beautiful, right on the money. But let's just go back a sec. Buccaneers won 47-7 without Stafford playing. Okay? Stafford plays, they almost beat the Bears. They lose on what you saw with Swift. With the Packers, they lose 42-21. So his defense gives up 42 points. They beat Arizona in Arizona, riding Stafford. They lose to the Saints. After scoring 29, they give up 35. They beat the Jaguars. They 34-16. They beat the Falcons on the back of Stafford, his game-winning drive, the final seconds. They lose to Indy because they scored 21, but they gave up 41. They lose to Minnesota, 34-20. They beat Washington, a playoff team. At this point, they're 4-5. At this point, they're 4-5. And they beat Washington 30-27. They turn it around the next week, and I don't know, for whatever reason, Stafford has a rough day. I mean, Stafford obviously had a rough day, but they also had multiple pressures on Stafford in the Carolina game. They gave up 12 pressures, 7 sacks, none of which PFF credits to Stafford. So he just had no time to throw. They lose 20-0. Houston, they give up 41 on Thanksgiving, 41-25. They beat Chicago 34-30 in the Windy City. So now they're 5-7. Green Bay, they lose 31-24. Tennessee, they go to Tennessee. Stafford has a game. Okay, he has some monstrous throws, which you'll see coming up. The no-look throw, the seam buster to Hunter Bryant, very impressive. And they lose 46-25. He only plays for 3 throws in the Buccaneers game. They lose 47-7. And then Minnesota, they lose 37-35. He gives it his all, but his defense gives up 37 points. By the way, they were last in almost every category, the defense. So this is a product of the fact, Stafford, again, as you can see here, turned the ball over. He's going to turn the ball over, okay? Brett Favre turned the ball over. I think he's very similar to Brett Favre, to be honest with you. Very similar. Big arm, a guy that's a true gunslinger, will roll out, will try to buy time, will take sacks. Very similar to Brett Favre. Now, Stafford is looking at a career in which he knows he should have a Super Bowl. He should have at least won a playoff game by now. This is somebody who's 74-90-1 in 165 games played. He has a 62.6 completion percentage for his career, 45,109 yards, 282 touchdowns, 144 interceptions. Now, he seems as though he's a guy that, I understand why people question him, but if you don't watch the tape, you can't know for sure. He does things on film that just don't show up in the stat sheet. He'll put a ball right on the money and it gets dropped. And that's been happening for a long time. He's dealt with a lot of drops. So he comes to the Rams here, and you have all these weapons. You have McVay. You have a top 10 defense. Now, what is Stafford going to do, and how would he win the MVP? I think Stafford wins the MVP with over 40 touchdowns. I think he might have 8 to 12 interceptions. But I think he's going to win the MVP because voters are going to see he went to the Rams and he turned everything around. I think this upcoming season, it's why I picked the Rams versus the Chargers in the Super Bowl. I think the Rams are going to the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford as long as he stays healthy. God willing, he stays healthy, and I think the sky's the limit. I don't think we've truly seen what a Sean McVay offense looks like, and now we're going to. That's not to say Goff didn't look great in 2018 and look good in 2017. But they have to figure it out now, and without Gurley, Goff hasn't been the same. So here comes Matthew Stafford, a guy that's had 11 times in 165 games he's quarterbacked where he's had a running back go over 100 yards in a game. The Rams had that 5 times last year. So I think he's going to get serious aid from Cam Akers. I'm excited to see what they do with him pass catching out of the backfield. I'm excited what they're going to do. Obviously, keep a lot of jet motion and everything in the playbook. Keep in mind also what Stafford does that Jared Goff didn't is he scares defenses straight up. So they're not going to be able to play the Rams the way they played them last year. They're going to have to respect that Stafford can throw. He can make every throw. No throw on the field, it's there that he can't make. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You can't write off anything with the Rams now. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, they can catch the ball. The offensive line, for the most part, is going to have continuity. They're expected to have all 4 starters back. 4 out of the 5 starters back. Could have all 5. They were also a top 10 offensive line, number 3 ranked by PFF. So Stafford's coming into a situation where they're going to give up fewer pressures than last year. He has running backs. Now, he had a good stable of running backs, but I think really it was more so the offensive line. But I think another thing that needs to be said is Darrell Bevell was the offensive coordinator for Stafford last year. He also took over as the interim head coach. Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell are going to be night and day compared to those guys. Night and day. It's really not even worth comparing. So, Stafford going into year 13 or year 12, he's not going to be a Lion. And Lions fans, there's a reason why a lot of Lions fans are jumping ship and moving over to being Rams fans. Because they absolutely love this guy. They've heard all the slander about this guy. As you can see, he's getting beaten to death over here in Carolina. They heard everything. They're tired of the slander. They want to see this guy win a ring. They know what he's done for the city of Detroit. He and his wife. They've given him back. But not only that, Stafford has been their starting quarterback since they drafted him in 2009. He was not a bust by any stretch. He's been unbelievable for them. He's been everything that they could have imagined and more. But they haven't had the defense to support it. It goes back to the saying, you can score 7 touchdowns, but if your defense gives up 8, you won't win a game. It's a very realistic thing. And unfortunately, Stafford had to deal with it. Not in that sense, but, the idea of it. So, Stafford, what are you getting with the Rams? You're getting a guy who's mobile, a guy that's a hard worker. A guy that has pinpoint accuracy, has velocity, has arm strength. Just raw talent on display. You're getting a guy that's poised, a guy that's experienced, a guy that's hungry, a guy that has not had the taste of a playoff win and has seen the Rams from his home win a playoff game this year with a quarterback that he knew he was better than. You're getting a guy that has just waited for the opportunity to play with guys on the other side of the ball like Aaron Donald. Has waited for the opportunity to play for a coach like Sean McVay. And ultimately is the missing piece of the Los Angeles Rams. They knew it. That's why they made the trade. He's going to do everything he can to bring a Super Bowl to LA. And the little things, the nuances, that to me is what makes you the potential, that's what makes you to go from the potential of being a really good quarterback to a great quarterback. Stafford can take the step and become elite. Not only can he become elite I think he's going to be a future Hall of Famer if this works out. And you can say all you want, well, he went to the Sean McVay system, clearly he's a system quarterback, but I don't even think that's it. I don't think that's it at all. If you put him in a situation where he had a number 1 defense, or at least a top 10 every year, like say a Tom Brady, I think he would have had success anyway. He didn't need the Sean McVay offense. He's already had success in these really bad offenses, piss poor offenses, horrible play calling, very, very, very predictable. And now you give him a guy, and this is my point, you give him a guy that's a mad scientist and a guy that's ready to win a Super Bowl. Guy that's already been in a Super Bowl. He was there his second year. Do you realize what can be accomplished between him, McVay, and O'Connell? Do you realize that Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Higbee, Van Jefferson, all those guys, do you realize they're all about to ascend? Because one thing I forgot to mention, if I haven't made it clear, Matthew Stafford elevates the play of everyone around him. Amendola, Quintez Cephas, Jesse James, TJ Hawkinson, Marvin Jones, Marvin Hall, you name it. Mohamed Sanu, Golden Tate, Levine Toilolo, Adrian Peterson, all those guys. All of them. Here's the thing. If it's a baton race, and you have to give the baton, you have to hand it off to the next guy, how can you expect the next guy to run with it if you throw it at his feet? If you don't hand it off to him? Stafford does a great job of limiting the inaccuracies in his arm. He has multiple arm angles that allows him to basically take what's in front of him, whether, if it's J.J. Watt or somebody trying to bat down his pass, he can throw sidearm like he's Kurt Warner. He can make those no-look throws. I've been saying it for a while. He can make the same no-look throws that everyone flips out about Mahomes making, he's been making for years. Not only that, the play, he might see, okay, I have this guy. I have the simple route to the flat. I have the screen. And he might just decide, you know what? I have the arm strength, and we need a big play here. I'm pushing this down the field. It's going to be really exciting to see what he and Sean McVay can accomplish. And it's going to be even more exciting as soon as Matthew Stafford just ends up on a field. As soon as the Rams can trot him out there in horns. Because make no mistake, there's a reason why teams are scared. There's a reason now why you're seeing all these teams rethink their quarterback situation, because they knew Jared Goff was the one thing the Rams were winning in spite of and not because of. Jared Goff was their least talented starter outside of maybe their linebackers. And now executives are looking around the league and thinking, this is bad news. This is not good. Sean McVay almost won a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Sean McVay has done wonders. Hell, look at John Wolford. I'm very high on John Wolford. I believe he's a starter in the league, but a lot of teams don't. So they looked at what he did and thought, Matthew Stafford's a different story. He succeeds no matter who's there, individually. And he gets everyone around him to succeed. It hasn't turned into wins, but look at the progress. Look at the production. And this is because you have a guy that is constantly, no matter what, keeping his eyes downfield. He's constantly trying to make a play. He's willing to take the hit. He's tough as nails. He'll get dumped and he'll get right back up. And I just think the accuracy factor is so important, but his awareness, you can't speak enough about his awareness. when I watched this film over and I finished every game, I'm not even going to lie to you. I was blown away. He's better than I thought. And I already was very high on him because I've watched every game beforehand. I've been following him for years, but I hadn't gotten a chance to rewatch. Keep in mind, I've watched every game, but I haven't rewatched the Lions games in all 22. And there's these things that he does in the pocket, just very subtle movements. And it's all like robotic, but it's just amazing. It's like that's when you get that to be second nature to you. I mean, that's the thing. He's doing this stuff and it's all second nature to him. It's a habit. Goff has developed poor habits, so we'll see if he breaks them. He's still making rookie mistakes. He still has mechanical flaws. Matthew Stafford always throws with the same level. Arm angle, like he changes his arm angle, but the same type of, using the same type of wide base, not too wide, not too skinny, and he drives the ball. Since he's been doing it since Georgia. I mean, it's really impressive. And here's the throw that I was talking about, the no look. Just unbelievable. Again, in slow motion, you're going to see it here to Marvin Jones. This thing's a thing of beauty. He's just... I hope people really realize, like Rams fans, really realize what they're getting in this guy. 282 touchdowns, 144 interceptions, true gunslinger. And now for the next 2 years, he's going to be a Los Angeles Ram throwing to top-notch wide receivers. It's the most talent he's been around since Calvin Johnson. And as much as I like Marvin Jones, as good as Golden Tate was, all these guys together do not equal, or those guys don't even equal anywhere near what these guys all together equal. And I'm really high on Van Jefferson, so don't sleep on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the best receiver in the room. He's that good, and I think people are going to finally see it. Josh Reynolds and Jared Goff were holding him back. Josh Reynolds because of playing time, Jared Goff because, well, he wasn't hitting the ball. Wasn't making that throw. He's not making that throw either. It's truly impressive, though, what Stafford's able to do. And it's just, again, he's going to win MVP if he stays healthy. He's been waiting for this moment. This is just a beautiful throw. I watched Goff miss this same throw 3 times this year in crucial situations. Go back to the Jets game. If he hits that throw to Darrell Henderson, they probably win. It's ridiculous. And here's the Buccaneers game, and he didn't last very long. He got hurt or something, but I put it in anyway. They're like 2 throws. That's it. And then this is the final game of the year, the showdown, where he makes a bunch of wild throws against the Vikings. I can't help but think, though, that there's just so many people sleeping on this guy, and I think he's going to break out. I mean, we saw Matt Ryan win an MVP. I know people don't put him in the same tier as Brady or Manning or Breeze or Rodgers, but I mean, I personally think Matthew Stafford has been in waiting. Someone put it very, I forget, it might have been, I think it was Skip Bayless. And normally I don't quote Skip Bayless. I'm not a big fan of Skip Bayless, but I think he said it the best. Matthew Stafford in Detroit was a sleeping giant. And now coming to the Rams, he's about to awake. More so, not just the talent, but just who he's going to have calling these plays. And the utmost respect that Matthew Stafford has from McVay. You can imagine that they're going to let Stafford do very similar things to what Rodgers is doing in Green Bay. Where, yes, he bought into the Matt LaFleur system, but don't make any mistakes about it. If Rodgers sees something he likes, he's going to pull the trigger on it. And I think that's, part of what I think McVay is going to be a part of with Stafford. I think he's going to give him a lot of opportunity, and we're going to see it. We're going to see his ability to work off script with this team and what they can do. And we're going to see the fact that I think you're going to go back to the Rams looking like the greatest show on turf again. Because the Rams team, no matter how good their offense was in 2017 and 2018, they didn't blow teams out the way the Rams of the greatest show on turf could. And I feel like this is a team now with Stafford, and we'll see in the offseason if they add a deep threat like Marvin Jones or what happens. But this is a team that can blow teams out on paper right now, adding Stafford. Look at that beautiful throw. You have, once again, the deep ball's back. What the Rams were able to do without being able to throw deep downfield and being very, very predictable isn't just beyond impressive. The Rams won 10 games and 9 games in back-to-back seasons without a deep ball, without a deep threat. That's all you need to know. Stafford comes in, can make all the throws. No stone is left unturned. Sean McVay has himself his franchise quarterback, and you can imagine that the Rams are going to be back in the Super Bowl. So that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like on it. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. You'll get all the access to the videos as soon as they come up. But I'm Jake Ellenbogen again. Appreciate you guys for checking this out. And I'm looking forward to seeing Matthew Stafford in what I believe is going to be an MVP season and a statement for anybody that doubted Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. Welcome back, guys, to the channel. I'm Jake Ellenbogen of the Jake Ellenbogen channel, and I'm here to bring you another quick hitter video. I'm going to talk really quickly about my prediction. It's a little bold, but I went through, and I'm going to be doing this for a bunch of players on the Rams, but we're going to start off with Matthew Stafford. I'm a big fan of his game going back to the Lions. I've been watching him for years, and I can tell you right now, the best is yet to come. He's had moments, obviously. You go back to the year he had with Calvin Johnson. Think that, but I think it's going to be a little bit better with the Rams. Before we get into the numbers, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know if you like the video. But now as we get into it, let me just start off by saying this. The Rams are a Super Bowl contender, and you could argue because of Stafford, but they've been to the Super Bowl pretty recently, not the same exact squad, but Sean McVay has the experience. When you look at the receivers that they've put in this room, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson, Tutu Atwell. If you want to throw in Jacob Harris's 6'5" frame, potentially developing into a Chase Claypool type of player, then sure, that's, we'll see. But the point is, they have a ton of weapons. That's not including Cam Akers. That's not including Darrell Henderson. That's not including Tyler Higbee or Bryson Hopkins, who I believe emerges in 2021. But what I will say about this is that Stafford not only has the weapons, but how many times have you heard Stafford turns the ball over too much? I know I've heard it so much. I've always heard stat Padford, because he pads his stats. I haven't heard the year they went 9-7, made the playoffs. 8 of those 9 wins came in the fourth quarter. They were come from behind wins that Stafford accumulated. He manufactured those wins. Well, now he's not in the element of having to do anything extra in Detroit. He's in LA, home of the team that had the number one defense last year. They had a pretty good offense last year, but they couldn't score touchdowns. Well, luckily for the Rams, Matthew Stafford knows how to put the ball in the end zone and put it on a dime. He's not just generally accurate, he is pinpoint accurate. So when you factor in the pieces, you have 17 games. These may sound like inflating numbers, but my stat prediction, I have 462 completions to 677 attempts which leads him to have a 60.2 completion percentage, which would be his career high. Now, I think that's fair to say because Sean McVay did a nice job of putting Goff in a position to make the easy throw. Even if it was a deep throw, it was an easy throw because he schemes guys open. And they have a lot of talent all around. It's going to be really hard to stop. And keep in mind, Cam Akers in the running game is going to open up everything over the top as well. It's going to open up things in the running game, and then it's going to open up things deep down the field. It's going to be hard to play this offense to begin with. So 68.2 completion percentage in 17 games. Before you ask why I have them playing 17 games and not taking a game off since I have them going 15-2, I firmly expect it's going to be them and maybe the Packers and Tampa Bay duking it out for the number 1 seed. So there's a good chance the Rams will play all of their starters in Week 18, 17th game of the season. So assuming they play 17 games, these stats might look inflated. I think they're pretty reasonable when you really think you add the numbers, it makes some sense. I have Stafford throwing for 5,151 yards, which also would be a career high. Now, here's the thing with Stafford, is that he's capable of throwing over 5,000 yards. And, I mean, he's done that before in a 16-game season. Now you give him another game, I don't think it's crazy. I do not think it's crazy. So 5,151 yards. It's not a ton to go around when you have 5 receivers deep and you have 2 running backs that can make plays out of the backfield and 2 tight ends. Not exactly the easiest to manufacture, but 51 touchdowns. Again, sounds like a lot, but really all that is averaging 3 touchdowns per game in a 17-game schedule. Now, I think that's fairly reasonable. I think he could have more than 51 touchdowns. I know they're going to run the ball, but let's not keep this in mind. Sean McVay has been dealing with Jared Goff, who wasn't able to throw deep down the field last year, who basically made it so they had to trade Brandon Cooks because they no longer had a deep threat that he could be hit, and you didn't want to pay $16 million to a receiver that you couldn't hit in stride. So I think Sean McVay's over the easygoing, the passes to the flat, the screens. He is going to go all out with Stafford. I understand 677 passes on the season is a lot, especially when I have a really good team. But I think they're going to have the ball a lot. And so I think that McVay saying that Stafford's going to average 39 passes a game, I don't think is crazy. I don't, because he's done things like that in the past. I think it's going to be more so, less about, trying to come back from behind and more about you're up and you just want to be the most dominant offense. McVay's tired of waiting for that. He has his quarterback now. Don't be surprised if they're trying to show up the other team. I think they're going to try to be like the greatest show on turf. I think they're going to be unstoppable personally, but that's why I have 51 touchdowns and he could have more. 9 interceptions. I know, hear me out, not throwing double-digit interceptions in a 17-game season when you're throwing 677 times, 51 touchdowns, and 5,151 yards seems ridiculous, right? Well, yes, but also keep this in mind, that Matthew Stafford was throwing those interceptions. If you go back and you watch, very rarely is he throwing an interception like the one Goff threw against Seattle. He doesn't have many of those boneheaded interceptions. A lot of the time, the interceptions came down to him trying to make a play because his team was down by 10 or 17 or 24. But now, the Rams, he goes to, they're 37-0 with Sean McVay when leading at halftime. They lead at halftime a lot. They're the second winningest team, so far in the McVay era. And to be honest with you, I don't think Stafford is going to have to press. He might have a couple interceptions where he just gets cute and tries to throw a deep bomb and it gets picked off and it's like a punt. But here's the thing. Stafford is very accurate. Stafford's very intelligent. The interceptions, the majority of the time that Matthew Stafford throws is due to miscommunication of the receiver, 1, and 2, just trying to make something out of nothing. And you can't fault him when you're constantly down by 10, by 17, by 24. You're just trying to make something happen, and I feel like that's ultimately what Stafford was trying to do with the Lions. So 51 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I have him averaging 303 yards per game, which is around pretty much the he's had just about that multiple times in his career, so I don't think that's crazy. 7.6 yards per attempt, I also don't think is crazy. It's not anything overly dramatic there. And then 110.4 passer rating that comes out to, according to Pro Football Reference, because I use their NFL passer rating calculator. Gotta cite my sources, right? All right, guys. So that, to me, is an MVP season. I predicted before the season started, before the draft started, once the Rams got Matthew Stafford, I said he's going to win the MVP. Now, this is going to assume he stays healthy. Maybe that's a bad assumption. I don't know. I think the offensive line will take care of him. I think Sean McVay will take care of him. And I think his receivers will take care of him. But thank you guys for tuning into this quick hitter video. If you guys like it, be sure to support it. Until next time, you guys take care. And I'll be back. I think we're just going to be doing videos every day. So I'll be back tomorrow. Later, guys. So the first playoff game he ever had was 2012, January 7th. It was against the New Orleans Saints. They lost 45-28 at 23 years old. He was he was turning 24 the next day. He went 28 of 43, 65 completion percentage, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 97 quarterback rating, and he ran in a touchdown. So he had 4 total touchdowns, but people would look at the 2 interceptions and say, well, I mean, he's turning the ball over in the playoffs. I mean, come on now. That's not very good. Now, but let's look at this, okay? 1 second here. So so here's how this went. So Detroit and New Orleans started off, it was 7-7. And then, so Detroit started off 7-0. Will Heller caught a 10-yard touchdown pass from Matthew Stafford. 7-0 Lions. Next, we had in the second quarter, keep in mind, second quarter, Lions up 7-0 going in the second quarter. Defense is playing well. So how did this happen? So Darren Sproles runs in a 2-yard rush there in the second quarter. Early on, you have New Orleans tying it up 7-7. Now, not long after, they have about a 5-minute drive here. Calvin Johnson catches a 13-yard touchdown pass from Matthew Stafford, 14-7 Detroit. John Casey for the Saints kicks a field goal. It's 14-10 heading into halftime. Then in the third quarter, Devery Henderson to start that since the Saints got the ball. Devery Henderson catches a 41-yard touchdown from Drew Brees. Clearly, Matthew Stafford was on the coverage. So New Orleans is now up 17-14. And then Jimmy Graham at the 4-minute mark in the third quarter catches a 3-yard touchdown pass from Drew Brees, 24-14. Matthew Stafford gets a 1-yard rush at the end. So he actually had about a 3-minute drive, brought him all the way down, and punched it in for a score to go down 24-21 heading into the fourth. And then in the fourth, the Saints had a 17-yard run by Darren Sproles to make it 31-21. And then Robert Meacham caught a 56-yard touchdown pass that made it 38-21. Then Matthew Stafford had a 12-yard touchdown pass to Calvin Johnson, making it 38-28 with 4:40 left to go. And then 3:36, Pierre Thomas ran it in and basically ended the game. 45-28 was your score. So, looking at this, I mean, once again, the defense gave up 45 points. Stafford was 23 years old. His interception, Stafford's interception came at the 3:13 mark. So the 3:13 mark, this is after he scored a touchdown to make it 38-28. So clearly this is a play where he's trying to just make something happen, anything happen here. Gets picked off in the fourth quarter at the 3:13 mark. And then, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. It went to Nate Burleson, and apparently he tipped it up and Jabari Greer caught it. So, I mean, he should have caught it. So it was a bobbled play that ended up going into an interception. And then let me find the other interception here that Matthew Stafford had, since he had 2 of them. But let's forget the fact he had 4 touchdowns. Okay, so then the Lions. Okay, so then that was at the 9:53 mark in the fourth quarter. Matthew Stafford intended for Titus Young, intercepted by Jabari Greer. Oh, wow. Greer had 2 interceptions. So Stafford's first playoff game, he went up against the 13-3 New Orleans Saints on the road and put up a pretty good game. For 23 years old, throwing 380 yards, having 4 total touchdowns. He had an interception in crunch time where, they're down by they're down by 10. He's trying to make anything happen. There's not a ton of time. And then, he had an interception earlier, which probably was more so his fault. So essentially he had 1 interception and then 1 that was tipped. So not a bad performance. But let's look at the second playoff performance from Stafford. So we go here, Dallas, 24-20. They lost. Yeah, Shane, he got hit on one of them, exactly. So they lost when he was 26 years old, 2015, January 4th, in Dallas. They lose 24-20. He had 28 completions to 42 attempts, so that's 66% completion percentage, 323 yards, a touchdown, interception, and 2 fumbles here, which he lost both of them. So not the best, obviously. They started off the game, 51-yard touchdown from Matthew Stafford to Golden Tate. Reggie Bush runs an 18-yard scamper into the end zone, so it's 14-0. And then the second quarter, towards the end, right before half, Tony Romo hits Terrence Williams, on a 76-yard touchdown pass. Anthony Hitchens had the no call. I vaguely remember that. So yeah, you have Terrence Williams, 76-yard touchdown from Tony Romo to end the half. Because Matt Prater kicked a field goal here, so it was 17-7 going into the second half. So what happens? Because they lose this game 24-20. So essentially, third quarter rolls along. Prater kicks another field goal, and at the 8:41 mark in the third quarter, the Lions are up 20-7, and it's looking really good for them to win, Matthew Stafford's first playoff win. Then they run into trouble. They get a long drive from the Cowboys, a little bit over 6 minutes. Not super long, but pretty long. DeMarco Murray runs it in for a score. It's 20-14. Dan Bailey kicks a 51-yard field goal at the 12:16 mark in the fourth quarter, making it 20-17. And with 2:32 left to go, Tony Romo hits Terrence Williams for an 8-yard touchdown. And that's how we have that. So it ends up being 24-20, Cowboys over the Lions in Matthew Stafford's second playoff game at 26. Once again, going up against the 12-4 Dallas Cowboys. He went up against the 13-3 Saints. Had an opportunity to win the Saints game. And the Cowboys, of course, he didn't do all. I mean, he was solid, obviously. I think 28 of 42 is pretty good. 323 passing yards, a touchdown. The interception hurts. And then, of course, 2 fumbles. Let's go back to this game here, going through the play-by-play. And, okay, so Stafford got the ball back. They were driving. They're at the Dallas 42. About a minute left to go in the game, and Stafford got sacked by DeMarcus Lawrence. fumbled. Lawrence picked it up, and that won them the game. Riley Reef got blown up on that play. So that, I mean, that obviously you don't like to see that. On top of that, Matthew Stafford with 2:10 left to go. Looks like there was something here. Oh, wow, that's hilarious. Okay, I actually vaguely remember this. So in the fourth quarter, 2:10 left to go, Stafford gets sacked by Anthony Spencer. He fumbles. Anthony Spencer forces it. DeMarcus Lawrence picks it up. He runs. Garrett Reynolds, yes, the Garrett Reynolds that you guys know, he played for the Rams, forces a fumble on DeMarcus Lawrence, and then Riley Reef recovers. That gave Stafford another opportunity in which he hit Eric Ebron for 6 yards, Golden Tate for 7, incomplete deep to Calvin, had hit Theo Riddick for 15. Then there was a false start. Then he hit Eric Ebron for 8, Theo Riddick for 4, and then he got sacked by DeMarcus Lawrence and fumbled, and that was the end of the game. But, yeah, I mean, part of this game was pretty good out of him. Obviously, the 2 fumbles near the end, not the greatest. Of course, the offensive line, it's great. It's easy to blame Matthew Stafford for holding on to the football, but the offensive line could have played a little bit better as well. But the defense isn't to blame because they only gave up 24 points in this one against a 12-4 team on the road. So to me, the Lions defense was not to blame for Matthew Stafford's second playoff loss. The first game, they gave up 45. The second, they gave up 24. But again, let's call it like it is. Matthew Stafford is going up against one of the top teams in the NFC. His first playoff game in 2011 against New Orleans, 13-3. And then in the second one, he goes up against Dallas, in New Orleans. Dallas is 12-4. Then the third one, and the last one that he was in 2016, he was 28 years old. And he plays against Seattle, and they lose 26-6. And it's just a rough game because you have the 205 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, no fumbles lost. Just not a very good game all around. Obviously Stafford could have played a little bit better. But, here's where I look at it. Zach Zenner is your leading rusher with 11 carries for 34 yards. So they had no semblance of a running game. This is the game where Thomas Rawls went off. He had 27 carries for 161 yards and a touchdown. I think that's the big thing here, is that Matthew Stafford had no running game to speak of. And then you look at his receivers, it's Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, Anquan Bolden, Eric Ebron, TJ Jones, Matthew Mulligan, but only one guy carried the ball, and he carried it 11 times. On top of that, Matthew Stafford only threw the ball 32 times. So what happens? Well, when you look at that, you have to look at the team stats, and, right here, I think, it'll tell you, Seattle just had the ball a lot longer. They did a nice job. They dominated the time of possession. They had the ball 36 minutes in that game. And while Matthew Stafford didn't turn the ball over, he also didn't get a chance to really throw the football. He only threw it 32 times and had no running game. So I'm not trying to just make all these excuses, but again, now you're talking about, the Seattle Seahawks. You're playing at CenturyLink Field, the 12s. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that's not a great environment, obviously. They ended up losing to the Atlanta Falcons, who then beat the Packers and went to the Super Bowl. And, of course, what happened there. But that Seahawks team, that was tough. That was not easy. And Zach Zenner being your number one running back, it's not ideal. And so, when people... This is why context matters, guys, and that's the reason I took you through that. And I'm going to go through all of your comments and we'll talk. But I wanted to go through that with you because context does matter. And to just say, well, Stafford's 0-3 in the playoffs and he can't beat a team. 2 of those teams were top NFC teams that they played on the road. All 3 of them are on the road. It's hard enough to win a playoff game at home, let alone on the road. On top of that, it's really hard when your defense gives up 45 freaking points in the first game. The third game, your running back is Zach Zenner, and he gets 11 carries. The other team holds on to the ball for 36 minutes. So this is why the context needs to be out there, is that when you look at it, you look at Stafford's career in the postseason, he's a 63% completion quarterback. He's got 908 yards passing, which is totally fine. It's probably about average to above average. And he has 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2 of which came in the New Orleans game. One of those interceptions, he was hit while he was throwing. The other one went right off Nate Burleson's hands. He has an 87.8 passer rating, sacked 6 times. I mean, he's averaging 7.7 yards per attempt. He has a rushing touchdown. He fumbled twice, all of which came in the Cowboys game towards the end of the game, trying to make something happen. I mean, I don't think he's like that bad in the postseason. I don't get it. I mean, I think obviously it's not the best, but it's not the worst. And I honestly think in that first game, he was really good against New Orleans, having 4 touchdowns, 380 yards. I mean, that's his first ever game. So I don't worry about this guy and the pressure. I don't worry about any of that. So that's why context matters at all times. And that's why I would say Matthew Stafford, like when people ask me, are you sure? Goff won in the playoffs, and now you have Stafford who's 0-3. Okay, and he can be 4-3 by the end of the year. Or 3, whatever it is. I mean, so let's put it this way. Like, I would rather have every running back on the Rams over Zach Zenner as my running back. No offense to Zach Zenner, but that was not his role. Like, come on now. Starting him. I mean, that's the thing. Thomas Rawls ran for over 100 yards. And you're going to blame Stafford for that? Whatever. His defense gave up 45 points. His first playoff game.
All right, guys, NFL Sunday is here. We are finally back to the NFL season. We're going to see the Rams, and I just came across this article. It's early in the morning. It's about 6 a.m. right now that I'm recording this. Ian Rappaport has just come out and reported that the Rams, essentially, they were not the team that Stafford was originally going to go to. Matthew Stafford, who's going to start for the Rams tonight against the Chicago Bears, surprisingly was going to be going to the Panthers from how it sounds. According to his report here, the Panthers were offering Teddy Bridgewater and a first rounder, and that was going to be what brought him to Carolina. However, Stafford, who basically made it pretty known that he was interested in working with this team and being, comfortable. He listed 3 teams that he wanted to go to, but he also was open to anywhere, or at least somewhat open. He decided to step in and say he didn't want to go to Carolina, and he actually wanted to go to Los Angeles with the Rams. Now, this is very interesting. The reason I made a video on this is, first off, it's breaking news in a sense. I know it's already happened, but it's definitely very interesting looking at it. Secondly, everyone talks about how the 49ers, it came down to the Rams, the 49ers, the Colts, etc., even the Jets. Well, Rappaport confirms that the 49ers never made an offer, and neither did the Jets. So it was really between the Rams, the Panthers, and the Colts, from what his report is showing. And to be honest with you, it sounds to me like Stafford really forced his way to LA, which is great. And I think Rams fans should really get behind that because it shows that he really wanted to come here, and this is somebody that wanted this. In a sense, I kind of had to make this video because I feel like Stafford's just been considered as a guy that just kind of, he was going to go wherever, he just wanted to get out of, Detroit. But if that was the case, then he'd be starting for Carolina today and not the Rams. So it does say a lot that this is somebody that, really facilitated this move. The Rams upped their offer. The deal was nixed. They're saying here before the Super Bowl, the Panthers were expected to get this deal done. And so it really adds a ton of intrigue here as to, what made Matthew Stafford want to go to the Rams so much. Obviously, you have the number 1 defense. You have Sean McVay. but why didn't he force his way to Kyle Shanahan in the San Francisco 49ers? Why didn't he force his way, to another team? He chose the Rams. And so I think obviously Rams fans have bought into him, but if you haven't already, Matthew Stafford isn't just a guy. He's not a mercenary to come to Los Angeles and go where the money was. This is somebody that's already under contract, and he chose to come here. So the rest is going to remain, as they say, at history, and we will see what happens. But feeling really confident, obviously, in Matthew Stafford. I think this was a brilliant decision on his part to decide to come to the City of Angels, to decide to come to a team that had already been in the Super Bowl in 2018 to the 2019 season. And to decide to come to a team that has the weapons, has the defense, and really is just missing that final piece at quarterback. I think they achieved it. And I think at the end of the day, this team will be holding the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the season. But we will see. This is going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. And on top of that, be sure to check out other videos that you can find up there. So that's going to do it for me. You guys take care, and see you guys tonight.
All right, folks, welcome back. It is that time again. It is prediction season. If you guys have been with the channel since last year, you'll remember I did my prediction series for the Rams. I'm doing it for the Rams and Jets. We started off today doing the Zach Wilson prediction, but now we're going to do Matthew Stafford. So before we get into it, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. And if you would like to, donate or anything like that, you can hit the super thanks on the bottom. Really do appreciate all of those. But let's dive into it, right? So Matthew Stafford, last year I said he'd go for 50 touchdowns. I think I had 51 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 5,000 yards, MVP. That didn't happen, right? I did also have him winning the Super Bowl. So I'll take that one. That was the most important. But Matthew Stafford, first year with the Rams, great season, but could have been a lot better. And I think the reason I say that is because when you look at it, Matthew Stafford, he didn't have the guy that he's going to have this year in Allen Robinson. I'm just going to say that. That's why you can see those stats that right there that I just put up. They're hefty. They're hefty. I get it. I understand. You look at the 5,000 plus yards, it's like, whoa. I mean, come on, Jake. He only had 4,886 last year. Played all 17 games. Why does he have 5,541? Hear me out. So Matthew Stafford last year threw deep passes, trying to give a guy a chance. Just go up and get the ball, right? Threw it to Jefferson. He threw it to Jackson. Deshaun Jackson looked up at it, sailed into the cornerback's hands on the Cardinals. Van Jefferson at times didn't really go up and try to play the ball. Well, now the Rams have Allen Robinson, who is literally known for that. And I think that's mainly the reason why the Rams went out and did that. On top of that, the Rams were 24th ranked, in the run game last year. And I understand a lot changed when Cam Akers went down, but I just don't think the Rams are going to run that much this year. I'm just being honest. I really don't expect it. I think they're going to run a decent amount, but I think this is going to be a pass-happy offense because I don't see how you're going to be able to stop this offense. I just don't. They go out and they get Liam Cohen, who I think is going to add more of a pass-first approach. And obviously he's not calling the plays, but I think they got him for a reason. So looking at it, Matthew Stafford last year, 41 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. He had a 67.2 completion percentage, which I have him hitting close to 70 in this season upcoming. He had a 102, over a 102 passer rating. I have 111.3. Quite the hike, but I'll explain in a sec. And he went 12-5, right? So the way I see it with Matthew Stafford, 5,541 yards, 46 touchdowns, which is only 5 more than his 41 last year. I think that's very doable. 13 interceptions, down from his 17 last year, which really just wasn't like Stafford. And to be honest with you, yeah, some decisions weren't very good, but at the same time, he had to have some help, and he didn't get that. So I think this year now with, you have Allen Robinson, you have Cooper Kupp coming off a Triple Crown season, is going to generate a lot of coverage. In my opinion, I think he's going to get bracketed a lot, doubled a lot. Then you have your big three, in the tight end room, your trio there. I mean, what can you say? Tyler Higbee came through in his own way throughout the year. Kendall Blanton steps up in the NFC title game, and Bryson Hopkins helps them win a Super Bowl. I think all three will have decent roles. I think Higbee's role is going to be slightly smaller than it's normally because I think they just have so much. Potentially Odell Beckham Jr. Not really factoring him in. I mean, I kind of was, but they have Van Jefferson as well. I think Tutu Atwell's going to have a bigger role, and they still have Jacob Harris and Ben Skoranek and Brandon Powell if they ever want to get into that, and then the running backs, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Kyron Williams. So Matthew Stafford is 100% going over 5,000 yards. The only way I don't see that happening is if he gets hurt. So hope to God that doesn't happen. But if he doesn't get hurt, he's going over 5,000 yards. 5,541 that I projected. I understand it's a lot, but I'm expecting, and keep in mind, I have Allen Robinson leading the league in receiving. So I'm expecting a big season out of Robinson, out of Kupp, another very similar season out of Jefferson, not trying to spoil the whole series, but you get my point. So Matthew Stafford, I think he's in for a huge year. And this will be a career year for him, the best year he's had. And it makes sense. Second year in this system, I just can't see him not absolutely blowing up. And so, yeah, I have 46 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Will he win the MVP? I don't think so. I think he's going to be in the running, and I think he'll be close, and he might lead the league in passing yards. Actually, he'll probably lead the league in passing yards. But I just think that, they would give it to, Josh Allen will probably be in the running. I think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football, so if he does win it, I'm not going to complain. It'd probably be, well-deserved. You got, Patrick Mahomes with the new look receiver room. So, I do think that there are some guys out there that definitely pose a threat. I think Justin Herbert is kind of a low-key option there. You have, of course, Joe Burrow. So, I'm not going to say that Stafford doesn't win MVP. I'm not expecting him to, and the projection isn't me like last year when I said he'll win MVP. I don't think, I'm not going out of my way to say he's going to win MVP. Now, going into year two in this offense, and it's no knock on Robert Woods, but I would argue it's somewhat of an upgrade because it's a full diversifying of your receiver room because there's no one that does what Allen Robinson does. I mean, keep in mind, the Rams thought Josh Reynolds was their big play receiver at one point. Their guy that can go up and get it, the 6'3" receiver. No. Wait till you see Allen Robinson, who, if you didn't see my YouTube short I threw out there this morning, you got to check it out because it's only a little bit of Allen Robinson, but it shows you he's so used to having pass nowhere near his catch radius, and he just goes and gets it. And this combination with him already having familiarity where the ball wouldn't actually be anywhere near him and still going out and making the play because he had, poor quarterback play the majority of his career. Now he's got Matthew Stafford, who's pretty damn accurate and who's going to put the ball on him. And it's, he's not going to, that's the thing. We're talking a 67.2 completion percentage last year. And this guy was bombing down the field. Throwing tons of deep balls. He's just very accurate. He's going to put the ball where it needs to be more often than not. And so it's just going to make Allen Robinson more dangerous. I can't tell you how many times last year he had to lay out, make a grab, and he didn't get a touchdown because of it. Or, years past, just in general. And I think this is just a great fit for him. This is a great offense for him. But ultimately, it's going to 10x, maybe not 10x, 2x, or maybe even 4x Stafford, his play, I think. Having him with Cooper Kupp is just going to be very, very lethal. And I think we're going to see some Tutu Atwell as well. I think they're going to utilize that speed. I expect Van, again, not trying to spoil, but I expect Van to pretty much be around where he was last year, very consistent, production-wise. And then the tight ends, like I said, running backs, we'll see. Darrell Henderson was, used out of the slot a decent amount. And I know Cam Akers, the rumor was he'd be used there. So, yeah, I think just what it comes down to is that Matthew Stafford is going to have one of the better seasons in the league this year, once again. But I think this year it's going to be more, it's going to be more kind of separating himself. Last year, he had a great season, but it was overshadowed because of the interceptions. This year, if he brings it down by 4, I guarantee you won't hear as much about the interceptions. I mean, you will hear it from people that don't want to admit Matthew Stafford is the real deal. I don't know how a Super Bowl hasn't changed that, but 41 touchdowns, 17 interceptions last year. Everyone looks at the 17, not the 41. This year, I think 46. I initially had it over 50, and I just decided to kind of, go more towards the passing yards, I would say. I think he's going to have more passing yards than some people are giving him credit. Maybe not as many touchdowns. I could see a lot of 1-yard runs as well by other, players, like running backs. So I'm going to say 46 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 111.3 passer rating, and 5,541 passing yards. So that is Matthew Stafford's 2022 season projections by yours truly, Jake Ellenbogen. And that is it for the video. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, like, comment, and there's more where that came from. Stay tuned. We're on to the running backs. Both the Jets and the Rams will be talking about Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Kyron Williams, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. It's all coming soon, so be prepared. Later, guys. Did Matthew Stafford make the top 5 in the ESPN Top 10 quarterback poll? We'll find out right now. All right, guys, I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we'll be diving into the ESPN Top 10 quarterback poll. We already talked about the positions over on the Downtown Rams podcast, so if you're interested in what has already been put out, the corner and the linebacker, of course, with Jalen Ramsey and Bobby Wagner being mentioned, you can check out the Downtown Rams podcast on my channel. But let's get into this, because this was an interesting list. I don't necessarily hate it, but this is a list, for those of you who don't know, it is behind a paywall, so if you don't have ESPN Plus, there's really no way to read it, but basically the list ranking the top 10 quarterbacks for 2022. So basically, guys, going into this season, executives, coaches, and players make their picks for the best passers. So it's said that there's a bunch of different players and coaches and executives that got together and were polled and asked to basically rank the top 10 of each position. And we've already talked about it, as I mentioned, but now the quarterbacks just came out today. And number 10, I thought, was a little surprising. It is Dak Prescott. Apparently the highest ranking someone had him at was 7. The lowest was outside the top 10. He's 28 years old. I really feel like he kind of lost a step after the injury. I think he's still really good, but Lamar Jackson didn't make this list. Derek Carr didn't make this list. Kyler Murray and Kirk Cousins didn't make this list. So is this more because the Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys or what? I don't know. I don't know if I'd have him in my top 10, though, so I didn't really agree with that. Number 9, Deshaun Watson. This I really don't agree with. He didn't even play last year. He may never play football again. Someone had him as high as 4th. And then, of course, the lowest ranking was outside the top 10. He's 26 years old. He's facing 25 civil lawsuits. I feel like that number just keeps going up. At this point, I don't expect him to ever play again, to be honest with you. But football-wise, I think he is a great talent. But I don't see why he's ahead of a guy that's already won the MVP in Lamar Jackson. It's kind of confusing to me. Number 8 was Russell Wilson. Highest rank from him, someone had him as 4th, and at 33 years old, someone actually had him outside the top 10. At this point, I don't know where to rank Russell Wilson. I think I really started to notice some decline last year, and I don't know if that was entirely just because of Seattle or what, but that was definitely interesting. Number 7 comes in. It is Justin Herbert from the LA Chargers. Highest ranking that anybody had was 5 for him. Lowest ranking was outside the top 10. He's 24 years old. I think he's already a phenomenal quarterback. I don't know where I'll rank him. I'll probably make my own top 10 video. But as far as that goes, I don't hate Justin Herbert at 7. Number 6 is Matthew Stafford. Highest ranking he had was 3. from the voters, and the lowest was outside the top 10. Now, to me, if you have this guy outside the top 10, you're not watching Rams football enough to be able to talk about Matthew Stafford. Simply put. He was top 10 in Detroit. All right, let's put it that way. But anyway, Matthew Stafford comes in at 6. I don't love it. I do have issues with it, and I'm going to break this all down right now because the article basically, states everything that I've been saying, 50 touchdowns, over 6,000 yards in 21 games, all that, right? But then they go back to the interceptions, and it's interceptions, tied Trevor Lawrence, the same talking points. Well, here's my issue with that. It's the way that it's worded here in this second to last paragraph. The only real issue with Stafford is he sometimes trusts his arm too much. I don't even agree with that point, but it gets worse in my opinion. Resulting in careless turnovers, he tied Trevor Lawrence for the league and, all that. And his 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl were sloppy. I'm sorry. The 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl, you mean the interception that was thrown up there and Van Jefferson didn't go and get it?
Did it a lot against Kansas City. 8 covering. Stafford says, go deep downfield, and it is picked off in the end zone.
Okay. What about the one where he threw it to Ben Skoranek, and Skoranek flipped it up in the air, and it got picked off?
Jefferson in motion. Off play action. Fired over the middle. Picked off!
I think Matthew Stafford can believe this one. Off the hands of Skoranek, who also had a chance for a big play.
How sloppy were they? Because I just watched the Super Bowl over again, and Matthew Stafford is better than people give him credit for in that game. He was better than people give him credit for in that game. He's also the only quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl era to not win the Super Bowl MVP throwing 3 touchdowns. I mean, Tom Brady, we always go back to this. Tom Brady won it with 152 yards passing the year they beat the Rams. I think he got half of those yards on the last drive in prevent. Anyway, Stafford is 6. I don't like it. It's complimentary. There are definitely some good things. His 18 completions going for 40 or more yards led the NFL during the season. Second in expected points added, according to NFL Next Gen Stats. Like, Stafford validated the beliefs of many around the league who figure the quarterback needed out of Detroit to maximize his potential. Like, that's great. Here's a quote from an NFL coordinator. That ain't coaching. That's a special player making a special play in regards to his no-look pass. But we move on to the list, and this is where I have an issue. Joe Burrow is 5. Now, I love Joe Burrow. I love young quarterbacks that are developing before our eyes, quarterbacks that we're going to watch for the next 10 years and watch them grow and become the face of the league. Joe Burrow had a shot, but he lost to Matthew Stafford. Was outplayed by Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl. And Matthew Stafford did not have Jamar Chase. He did not have T. Higgins. He did not have Tyler Boyd. Okay? Joe Mixon. Matthew Stafford lost Tyler Higbee before that game, then lost his second string tight end in Kendall Blanton, so his third string tight end had to take over. He had his running back Cam Akers coming back off an Achilles tear, not being fully ready. He had his other running back, Darrell Henderson, coming off a high ankle sprain. And then on top of that, he loses OBJ to a torn ACL in the middle of the game with no Robert Woods, obviously. It was an injured Van Jefferson who was banged up going into that game. Ben Skoranek, who was a 7th rounder, and Cooper Kupp, who basically was just going to be doubled the whole game. Was, the entire game plan, essentially, for the Bengals to win that Super Bowl was to just not let Kupp have the ball. And it was going to work. And Stafford stepped up, Kupp stepped up, Bryson Hopkins stepped up, and, Darrell Henderson stepped up. But make no mistake about it, Burrow had more to work with and didn't do as well as Matthew Stafford did, having to literally put the team on his back at the end with Cooper Kupp. So I don't agree with this for that reason, but I also don't think Burrow's better than Stafford. Not yet, anyway. I don't get that. I think it's entirely because of the interceptions, and people want this guy to be the next Tom Brady. And again, I love this guy. I love watching him play. I like his demeanor. He seems like a real nice guy and really easy to like. First off, the lowest ranking was outside of the top 10. I don't know how Burrow's not in your top 10, but then again, that's what somebody had. He's 25 years old. Last year, he got an honorable mention on the list. Last year, Stafford, he was 6th. So how is he 6th last year and he remains 6th this year? I don't get that. I do not get that. So Burrow is ahead of him. Someone literally ranked him as 2nd, which I don't know what's going on here. The number 4 is Tom Brady, of course, right? Tom Brady, highest ranking is 1 because people still, for whatever reason, think Tom Brady's the best quarterback in the NFL. This is not all time. This is right now. Tom Brady got outplayed by Matthew Stafford, okay? So I don't understand that. Like, Matthew Stafford outplayed Tom Brady the whole year, essentially. So every time they faced, Stafford outplayed Tom Brady. And Tom Brady didn't throw as many interceptions, but he also didn't win a Super Bowl. He also lost to Matthew Stafford at home in the playoffs and lost to him in LA. Pretty much was a blowout. The game was really 34-17, and Tom Brady got last minute garbage time touchdown to make it look somewhat respectable at 34-24. The love for Tom Brady I get, but this idea that he's still like the best quarterback in the league, anybody that thinks that's ridiculous. The lowest ranking he got is 8. That's probably around where I would put him. This is going into 2022, so I don't see how he's ahead of Stafford. But all right, now we move on. Number 3, Josh Allen, highest ranking 1, lowest ranking 7. I'd probably put him at 1, like I've been saying. I'm very high on Josh Allen. I do think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. His unique blend of size and speed and arm strength, and just the fact that he's gotten better as a decision maker and his clutch factor. I mean, he really is one of the best players in all of football, and I think he is the best quarterback. Number 2 is Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to truly argue against it, because I feel like you're splitting hairs. Like, that's what I'm doing. I'm splitting hairs. I think Allen is the best, but I don't think Allen is astronomically better than, Mahomes or Rodgers, right? But Mahomes came in 2. Rodgers came into number 1, and the lowest he was rated was 5. So clearly someone just had an issue with him as a person, just like the guy that didn't want to vote for him for MVP or the Pro Bowl or whatever. I gotta say, it's not the worst list I've ever seen. But I do have issues with the fact that 2019 NFL MVP Lamar Jackson is left off the top 10 going into 2022. A quarterback that might never play a down in the NFL again and has 25 civil lawsuits is considered a top 10 quarterback going into 2022. The fact that Matthew Stafford apparently didn't move the needle at all. Stayed at 6 like he was last year going into 2022, coming off a Super Bowl win, coming off, like I just mentioned, the only quarterback in NFL history to have over 6,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. And then the fact that Joe Burrow's ahead of him, the fact that Tom Brady is ahead of him, that's really it. I mean, Rodgers, Mahomes, Allen, I think they're kind of in their own, tier. I will say this, though. Whoever rated Josh Allen at 7 needs to explain themselves. Whoever thinks that Patrick Mahomes is 5, I actually think they might be onto something. I don't know if I would rank him that low, but Patrick Mahomes has gotten a little careless with the football.
Some of a chance at a pick in the next play. Montana beat him with a touchdown pass to Taylor. And now they go deep down the field, and it is intercepted on the rebound by Bell.
So I don't hate ranking him lower going into 2022 because you haven't seen him without Tyreek Hill.
Down the middle. It's Hill in the open. cuts it upfield. He might be gone. He is.
You know, I still think he's fantastic, but it's going to be very interesting because his game against the Bengals, I mean, I really think he just folded at the end. They could have won that game. But, yeah, Rodgers, again, lowest ranking 5. Probably just somebody that has a problem with Aaron Rodgers' views. It has nothing to do with the football. Nobody who watches football thinks Aaron Rodgers is, like, barely in the top 5. I mean, come on. The dude's a back-to-back back-to-back MVP. I mean, like, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. As far as the honorable mentions go, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's the biggest snub. Derek Carr is kind of a sleeper here. I would not mind putting him in the top 10. Kyler Murray's biggest issue is that he can't play a full season. And what I mean by that is even if he's healthy, he wears down at the end of the year. Look at his game against the Rams to start the season. The first half of the season, Kyler looks like an MVP. And then the second half of the season, he looks like he's getting bullied on the playground. I mean, there's literally sacks you can check out in my Rams, every sack the Rams had in 2021 to 2022 season in a minute YouTube short. There's a sack where they push Kyler Murray down like they're bullying him on the playground. I mean, it got that bad at the end of the year. It was like bully ball. So, you know, I can understand keeping him out. And then Kirk Cousins, I'll just say this. He had a very good year last year. He slept on because they didn't make the playoffs, so they got rid of the problem. Okay? Mike Zimmer's out. So Kirk Cousins now with Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson going into year 3, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, what they're doing with the offensive line, what they're doing with the defense. Just saying, Kirk will probably be bidding for the top 10 following the end of this season. So, what do you guys think? I thought Matthew Stafford at 6 was too low. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I definitely don't think Brady and Burrow should be ahead of him. 2 guys that he beat to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. But it's not just head-to-head. Like, I think when you look at Matthew Stafford, his issues last year, his issues were the interceptions. But if you watch the games, you know most of those interceptions weren't really his fault. It was him putting confidence and instilling confidence and believing in his receiver to go and get the ball. So he's giving him his, receiver a shot. Mahomes does it. It gets picked off. Oh, well, that's just Mahomes playing, that deep ball. He'll win that every other. But when Stafford does it, it's Stafford throws too many sloppy interceptions. I'm sorry, he threw a bomb to Deshaun Jackson, who he just stared up and looked at the ball go into the receiver's hands. He threw, an end zone fade, just kind of threw it up there, gave Van Jefferson a shot to go get it. Jesse Bates is the one that went up and got it. Van Jefferson stared at it. But what have I been saying this whole offseason? They've gotten essentially the guy that's going to correct that. You think those jump balls are not coming down when it's being thrown to Allen Robinson instead of Deshaun Jackson? I'm just saying, watch his interceptions go down, watch his touchdowns go up, his yards go up. This is going to be an absolute monster season. That's why I think Stafford, in my opinion, is going to come in the top 3 in quarterbacks this year. You already know my thoughts on that. I have him thrown for over 5,500 yards, 46 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions, according to my projection video, which you can check out on my channel. But that doesn't sound like a 6th overall quarterback to me. That sounds like a top 3. And that's where I think he intends to stay. I think we'll be playing against the number 1 quarterback in the league, Josh Allen, when Super Bowl 57 hits in February. But that's all I got for you guys this time. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, let me know where you have Matthew Stafford in your list. Does he make your top 10? Does he make your top 5, your top 3, or is he even number 1 for you? Let me know. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, but That's going to do it for me. Until next time, I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can like, subscribe, and comment on this video. It really does help me out. And furthermore, if you like me, you can also check out my other videos that will appear right after this scene. We'll go right into my end credits scene or whatever, and you can check out those videos there. That's going to do it for me. You guys take care, and I'll see you soon. Los Angeles Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is the most disrespected quarterback in the National Football League, and I'm about to tell you why. All right, welcome in, folks. Today we're going to be discussing Matthew Stafford and why I believe he is ultimately the most disrespected quarterback in the entire NFL. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and let's dive right into this thing. So, Matthew Stafford, where did we start? Well, we have to remind you how we got here. Obviously, yes, we know the Rams made the trade to acquire Matthew Stafford, the 34-year-old quarterback. However, there is more to this story, and it starts in Detroit. Before joining the team, everyone thought they had him figured out. A stat patter, they said. A loser who couldn't get it done when it mattered, they said. And while 74, 90, and 1 all-time with the Lions, and those are actually facts, believe it or not. The truth is that while Stafford was a very talented quarterback, he was not on a good roster. But people didn't want to hear that. There was no excuse coming from the outside world, and that was not going to happen. Matthew Stafford wouldn't have approved of it either. He wanted to win. Forget about his 39 game-winning drives in combination with fourth-quarter comebacks. That didn't matter at the end of the day because he was just a stat patter who was gifted Calvin Johnson, anointed as the #1 overall pick, had never won a playoff game, and really didn't have to pay his dues as he started day one in the NFL. However, people seem to forget that while he had Calvin Johnson for 7 years, there were 5 other years he didn't have Calvin Johnson. He had Kenny Golladay, who has not been the same player since leaving him and going to the Giants. He had Marvin Jones, who has not been the same player going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had Danny Amendola, who just retired, and he was throwing seam busters down the field to third-string tight ends because at the end of the day, a really good quarterback in the NFL, that is not a stat patter, and that is not made by the talent around him, throws to whoever is on the field, and that is exactly what Matthew Stafford has done throughout his entire career. Sure, he was 0-3 in the playoffs, but those things deserve context. The first game against the New Orleans Saints, he had 4 total touchdowns, and the defense gave up 45 points. The second game, he went up against the Dallas Cowboys. A bad call cost them the game. And the third game, his running back was Zach Zenner. Hard to win a game in Seattle against the Legion of Boom with just Zach Zenner at running back. Speaking of supporting casts, we said, at least if you were on the aisle of Matthew Stafford's defense, we had been saying if he just had a defense, if he had a better team, imagine what this guy could do. And sure enough, looking at the stats here, he definitely did that. You look all the way across from 2009 to 2021, you see a common theme here. He didn't really have much of a defense. He had 1 year, they were second in the league in 2014. Aside from that, 32nd, 26th, 21st, 29th, 15th, 29th, 28th, 22nd, 31st, 32nd, and then finally he goes to the Rams and instantly has the #1 defense according to PFF. Now, these are PFF stats, so I don't want to say it's entirely the end-all be-all, but it is worth pointing out. In addition to that, you look at the #1 offensive line, pass blocking-wise, according to PFF. It's not to say he never had protection in the past, but to say that he had better protection than he did with the Rams would be incorrect. Even still, he did not get the running game going in LA. You saw Darrell Henderson show you some good things last year, Sony Michel. It wasn't the Todd Gurley running back room that helped Jared Goff out. Instead, they dealt with 2 running backs. Their starting running back ended up tearing his Achilles, and so Matthew Stafford once again made do with what he had. The previous year, he had the 30th ranked running back room, 23rd, 24th, 32nd, 17th, 27th, 8th, 24th, 16th, 24th, 18th. That means, according to PFF, he has only had a top 10 running back room once in his entire career back in 2014. We'll see what ends up happening this year, but it goes to show you that Matthew Stafford can still, despite not having the supporting cast, can still will his team to victory, and we saw that throughout the course of his career with all the fourth quarter comebacks and all of the come from behind victories that he has accumulated throughout his career. Even still, they had the 8th wide receiver room in the NFL due to the Robert Woods injury, due to Jacob Harris getting hurt, Tutu Atwell getting hurt, Odell Beckham Jr. not joining the team until later on, Deshaun Jackson basically quitting the team before the halfway point of the season, and Van Jefferson playing the entire second half of the season injured. When you put these metrics together, and again, it's not the Bible, PFF can be wrong, but when you look at this chart I made, it really shows you that all along, the only argument that people had for Matthew Stafford is that he's very talented and he's not on a good team. And so in his first season, he goes right to a good team and they win the Super Bowl. He goes from 0-3 in the playoffs to now Super Bowl champion. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to win the Super Bowl throwing 3 touchdowns and not win Super Bowl MVP. I don't want to jump the gun too far because I have plenty more where that came from, but just making it very clear, Matthew Stafford's supporting cast always mattered. It would matter with any quarterback in the league. If you look, Tom Brady's had a top 10 defense pretty much throughout the entire course of his career. If Tom Brady didn't have a top 10 defense, where would he be? Where would other guys be if they didn't have Marvin Harrison to throw the ball to? Everyone looks at Matthew Stafford having Calvin Johnson early on in his career, but fails to remember that Calvin Johnson, as great as he was the guy in the wide receiver room. There wasn't much there. They had the 9th ranked wide receiver room, and that is including the record-shattering season Calvin Johnson had in 2011. 2012, Calvin Johnson had another insane season, and they were 20th in the league. So what does that tell you? Having said all of that, what we need to realize is that Matthew Stafford finally has an offense curated to every strength he has in the book. I know that sounds kind of funny because last year he had Odell Beckham Jr., Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel, and all sorts of guys. But what it really comes down to is this. This team is better than last year's team. This team is going into a second year in this offense. That means it's a second year for Matthew Stafford. His first year they won the Super Bowl. Yes, this year's going to be tougher schedule-wise, but it is unbelievable the amount of doubt and the amount of slander that Matthew Stafford continues to get despite proving everyone wrong. And honestly, I just explained to you why he continues to get the slander. He proved everyone wrong. I mean, not you, probably you watching this, most of you probably believed in him. I believed in him. I said when the Rams acquired him, they'd win the Super Bowl. But not everyone did, and you can see that in their biased perspectives. You can see that in their opinions, in their predictions, their projections, whatever. You can see that. Tampa is the favorite. Tampa's always the favorite. Tom Brady, he's 45 years old. He's got to be the favorite. Matthew Stafford beat him head-to-head last year twice. I've gone on record saying this in multiple videos, but I'm saying it again. Yes, I understand quarterbacks don't duel against each other, but still, this team has beaten the Buccaneers repeatedly. If you had any argument at all, it would be the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, who the Rams and mainly Sean McVay has not figured out how to beat since his buddy Matt LaFleur went over there and became their head coach. They have not beaten the Packers. That would be a fair assessment. Just think about this. If you take away November, and I'm not saying you should take away stats, but if you take away November, he was literally top 3 in every single passing statistic. It took a really bad end to the season for him to fall off, and even still ended up throwing 40-plus touchdowns. His 17 interceptions is the highest he's had since 2013, which I'm not really worried about. And on top of that, now everybody is trying to make this elbow thing more than it really is, when last year he dealt with an elbow injury, he dealt with a wrist injury, he dealt with a back injury. He was banged up This guy plays through the pain. Most people don't realize that because a lot of people weren't watching Detroit Lions football, but this guy has always played through the pain. You could ask any Detroit Lion fan that, and he's already gone on record and said he wants to continue playing. He signed a 5-year deal this offseason, and so while that is a talking point that has come up, will his body allow him to continue to play? I don't have any doubt that Matthew Stafford will be ready to go for not only week 1, but week 1 next year, week 1 the year after, week 1 the year after that. This guy is a baller. He has been doing his job in Detroit. He finally got a chance. He got an upgrade for the offensive line, for the running backs, although measly. You talk about 16th ranked Rams running back room, probably the worst running back room in Sean McVay's history, and still it's top 3 all time in Matthew Stafford's career for running back rooms. In addition to that, you now have Allen Robinson. Okay, they might get Odell, but that's not really a big deal right now. They have Allen Robinson. They have Tutu Atwell, who just had a great camp. They have Cooper Kupp coming off a Triple Crown season. Van Jefferson will be ready to go. Cam Akers is back and healthy. The emergence of Bryson Hopkins, Tyler Higbee, an offensive line that should be potentially around the top 10 range. We'll see what ends up happening there. And a defense that was number 1 last year according to PFF, and there's no reason to assume that they couldn't be there again this year. He's got the supporting cast, and so anybody doubting Matthew Stafford at this point just doesn't want to get proven wrong yet again. So why is it that people tend to hate Matthew Stafford, or at least seem that way? He seems like a good guy. He definitely, has carried himself that way since being with LA, doing plenty of charity work with his wife in Detroit and LA. It seems kind of odd that people hate this man so much. They cannot put him up here. He has to stay down here. I think this stems back to, if you remember, Matt Ryan, when he won the MVP. A lot of people had a little bit of an issue with that. Yes, he was absolutely deserving that year. He didn't win the Super Bowl, though, and that's where the similarities end. But when you look at Matt Ryan, it's the tale of people being uncomfortable moving players up rungs. And that is what I've noticed throughout sports. When a player starts playing well, but he's playing better than what his tier would have him at, it's a hard adjustment, especially for people that have already made their ranking system and they have a guy listed low or whatever. If it makes them look bad, they ultimately don't like it. And we're all human, so I'm not going to act like I've never done that either. However, last year, Matthew Stafford threw 41 touchdowns. He was second in the league, only behind Tom Brady. He was top 3 in passing yards in a brand new offense, a myriad of injuries, including which he was playing through. And on top of that, a dreadful November that probably would have derailed just about any team in the league, except his play elevated down the stretch. He threw 10 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions in the playoffs, and he became the first quarterback in NFL history to throw 50 touchdowns and 6,000 yards passing when you combine postseason. No quarterback's ever done that, and you don't hear about that. It's not talked about. He is not the guy that people are asking, who would you rather have? Instead, I've heard more about Joe Burrow, who's been ranked higher in all sorts of power rankings. I've heard more about the quarterback that lost the Super Bowl to the quarterback we're talking about, Matthew Stafford, and I just don't think that's fair. I think there's clearly a slander here. I think people don't want to admit that Matthew Stafford was always very good. They instead look at different ways to critique him, to deflect. He's in a super team. It's not him, it's Sean McVay. Well, if it wasn't him and it was Sean McVay, then why did it take the Rams until he became the starting quarterback? They went out and traded for him for Sean McVay to get over the hump in winning the Super Bowl. That's not a knock on Sean McVay. That is what I'm saying, in that Jared Goff was a good quarterback, but he lost his way. Matthew Stafford was a great quarterback, but never had a path. He was never on a team that had a defense, that had an offense combined in one, that had a team that he didn't have to carry on his back. And ultimately, I don't think that makes him a bad quarterback. I don't think that takes anything away from him, because we already saw what this guy is capable of doing, carrying his team on his back without really much of any help on the defensive side of the ball. It's time. If today is the first time you're hearing about this, great. If you are sitting here and you're watching this video and you yourself thinks that Matthew Stafford is overrated, please, please, please watch the tape, watch Jared Goff's tape in LA, look at his stats, compare his stats to the guys you think are better, and come back to me. Because when you really think about it and you remove the notion that this guy doesn't belong in that tier, you start to realize that he does belong in that tier. And it's okay that he's around talent. But also, if we're going to use the talent against him, then why do we not give him credit for winning a Super Bowl when he was down to Cooper Kupp, Bryson Hopkins, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers coming back off an Achilles, Ben Skoranek, an injured Van Jefferson, no Tyler Higbee, no Robert Woods, 1/4 of Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, we gotta be fair here. And that's the thing. We see the weapons used for Matthew Stafford. We never see it used the other way around. Oh, well, Matthew Stafford has Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford has this. Matthew Stafford has that. Well, the majority of last year, he didn't have Odell Beckham Jr. Von Miller didn't join the roster until later on in the year, and it's always used against him. But why isn't it used against other players? Why isn't it used against Tom Brady, who would have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and just got Russell Gage and has had Rob Gronkowski? Why is it never used against him? Why is it never used against guys like that? And it's only used on Matthew Stafford. Explain that to me. Matthew Stafford was third in completed air yards, only behind Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson. This isn't a guy that was just dinking and dunking. And he didn't have Todd Gurley in his prime like Jared Goff did. I think it is incredibly impressive, and I don't think we talk about it enough, how impressive his season was. Yes, he struggled down the stretch, as I've already mentioned, but his postseason was amazing. His 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl really stem from the fact that he threw it to Ben Skoranek, who tipped it up in the air and had that picked off, and then he threw it up and gave Van Jefferson, an injured Van Jefferson, a shot to go up and high point the football and win that battle against Jesse Bates, and he stared up and looked at it in the end zone. That's not on Stafford. Since when did this league become what ifs? I've never seen more excuses against a quarterback in my entire life. This is actually the easiest player to defend in the history of sports for me because he has so many things that make his arguments easy and just ruin other people's arguments. How come it's always about, oh, well, he got the job done? It didn't matter when Tom Brady beat the Rams in Super Bowl 53, having not played that well, pretty much carried by the defense. It was a pretty defensive game. That didn't matter. He got the win, right? It didn't matter how he beat Patrick Mahomes. The fact that almost the entire offensive line was out. No, he won the game. It didn't matter when Aaron Rodgers, with a better defense and honestly not really at his best, beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. That didn't matter. He just won the Super Bowl. Same thing with Russell Wilson. It didn't matter that Russell Wilson was nowhere near where he ended up being at the time he won the Super Bowl and that he had the Legion of Boom. It was just that he won the Super Bowl. He got the job done. Joe Flacco. The list goes on. Well, why does it not matter that Matthew Stafford did that? He did that and then some. And there's still people out there that want to say that he was carried by this team. They do not win the Super Bowl without him. If you want to place any quarterback in that scenario against the Bengals being down, I don't see anybody winning that game. Tom Brady in his prime, okay, fine. But Tom Brady right now, who knows? He beat Tom Brady. He beat Jimmy Garoppolo. He beat Kyler Murray. He beat all of these quarterbacks to get to the big stage, and then he beat Joe Burrow, and people still don't want to give him his credit. He wasn't even in the top 10 in the NFL top 100 list. That is ridiculous. He was absolutely a top 10 player last year. He's a top 3 quarterback in standing right now, and the only reason people do not want to admit that is the fact that they don't want to be proven wrong. Hate to break it to you, you were wrong about Stafford. If you didn't think the Rams could win a Super Bowl with Stafford, if you thought the trade sucked, if you thought that Goff was better, if you thought that he was another Jared Goff, or if you thought and you said the word stat padford, or you said that he couldn't win the playoffs, you, in any of these 5 categories, were wrong. So in conclusion, Matthew Stafford is an elite quarterback. He is one of the best quarterbacks in football. He's going into year 2 in this offense with Sean McVay, who just won a Super Bowl, the youngest coach ever to win a Super Bowl. He's going into his second year with a great defense behind him, doesn't have to carry this team, potentially a better running back room than last year. And on top of that, he's going into this year with Allen Robinson. The biggest knock on Matthew Stafford was that he couldn't win games in the playoffs. And then the biggest knock after he did that was that he threw 17 interceptions. I still see people saying that. 17 interceptions and the elbow injury. 17 interceptions is nothing. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow had 2 and 3 fewer interceptions. That's not a huge difference. Matthew Stafford threw more touchdowns than all 3 of them, but that doesn't fit a narrative. Just like the elbow. I showed you he already had the elbow injury. He went through it last year. It's not like it flared up. It's not like it's worse this year, but that doesn't fit a narrative. People are running out of different storylines to say. They're evading the obvious. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The closest thing that we have gotten to the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick Patriots dynasty is this Rams team. It's why I believe that Matthew Stafford is going to win his second Super Bowl at the end of this season in 2 tries, and he will have more than Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and all the quarterbacks except really Tom Brady at that point. And that is exactly how it should be. A guy who has paid his dues in a different type of way, was drafted number 1 overall, and didn't come up as a number 199 overall pick like Tom Brady did, but he had to pay his dues in a different way. He went through the pain and all of the losing in Detroit to get to LA, prove himself. He finally gets the opportunity and grabs life by the horns, does the impossible, winning the Super Bowl for the LA Rams, the second Super Bowl in the history of this franchise and the 4th championship. They had not won a Super Bowl since Kurt Warner was the starting quarterback, and Matthew Stafford, 1 year it took. What can he do now in the second year of this offense, knowing more, adding more, having Allen Robinson, just all of the additions, the growth of Sean McVay, how much this team grew coaching-wise, player development. They are sleeping on this quarterback. They are trying to bury him. You see it all over social media. You see it all over those engagement posts. No one wants to admit that the next Super Bowl winning quarterback is not Joe Burrow. It's not Justin Herbert. It's not one of the young guns. It is indeed Matthew Stafford. And if he had joined this team earlier in his career, say he joined it in 2017 with Sean McVay, the Rams would already have 3 Super Bowl wins at the very least. He is a damn good quarterback. He's been an elite quarterback in a bad situation. I just proved that to you. Stop sleeping on him. Matthew Stafford is an elite quarterback. Even though he doesn't need to, he will prove it once again, winning Super Bowl 57 and winning back-to-back seasons, and will be at the helm of the first dynasty since the New England Patriots, helmed by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. But you heard it here first. Maybe I'm wrong. Leave it in the comments below. Let me know, what am I wrong about? If you agreed, if I changed your opinion, also drop that below. What are your thoughts? Do you think Matthew Stafford's underrated, overrated, or properly rated? Let me know below. That's going to do it for me. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and I am signing off. You guys take care. Later.